Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we've got backstage reaction to The Rock and all of his latest chaos in WWE. We've got some gory details from the roast of WrestleMania. We've got an update on Becky Lynch's WWE creative, and we've also got the backstage reaction to Rusev and his return. I'm Andy Murray. I'm on vacation, so if the setting, the sound, and the camera is a little bit weird today, that's why. Don't worry, we'll be back to normal soon. But we're going to start this one off by talking about The Rock and all of the latest nonsense that he's been getting up to. Unless you've been living under a rock, obviously, for the past couple of days, you'll know that The Rock jumped on Pat McAfee's show and basically said that the only reason he showed up at Elimination Chamber was because Ari Emanuel from TKO and Endeavor basically said, hey, we're struggling to sell tickets, can you come in? He also said a bunch of other stuff, like verified a bunch of Dave Meltzer's reporting from last year regarding, and from this year, regarding the Soul stuff and how Rock wanted Cody to turn heel, but they decided against it. He also jumped in the comment section of Dave LaGreca and Busted Open Radio on Instagram and said, hey, stop ranting and just be a fan and enjoy the ride. It's got a bunch of people talking, a bunch of people theorizing that The Rock ruined WrestleMania or something like that. I don't know. It's crazy. But Fightful have, within the past couple of hours, published a very lengthy report on the backstage reaction to all of this, and bear with me, it will take a while to get through these details, but I do think that they are very interesting. So Fightful spoke to a bunch of different people, and several talents noted that The Rock wasn't at TV, he wasn't on TV, he wasn't at WrestleMania or even doing any promotion or tweeting about the show. Another noted that while he didn't appear, obviously he was very quick to jump on a podcast after the show and talk about being called to boost ticket sales for Elimination Chamber. Now, another person did back up the idea that The Rock did boost ticket sales for Elimination Chamber. It was seen as a big boost internally. Now, people in creative were told to work on the assumption that The Rock wouldn't be working WrestleMania. They thought that this would change after the Chamber, but they were told not to factor him heavily into promos. Now, a long-time talent in WWE says the roster loves seeing The Rock at shows, but noted that the comment from last year about the card being at the mercy of Dwayne is something they feel pulls Rock in both directions simultaneously. Yeah, I mean, The Rock is a very chaotic man, you can't deny that. Someone said that The Rock didn't want to be seen as interfering with WrestleMania plans like last year, but perhaps didn't understand how important he'd be to the story. Rock's absence and his comments were met more with confusion rather than frustration in WWE. One person said they felt it was an overcorrection, and a lot of talent were talking about The Rock's absence from Mania and his lack of promotion for the event, with one person saying, we found it kind of weird he didn't promote the show at all. Now, regarding the comment to Dave LaGreca about stop ranting and be a fan, somebody said, what does that mean? Is he said everything's a work, brother, something along those lines. Is he working every time he stops by and talks to us backstage as well? Was that McAfee interview a work even though he specified he wasn't in character? So the number one conclusion from all of this for me is that The Rock is a very inconsistent man, and he makes snap decisions and you know, maybe doesn't consider the wider responses that certain calls are going to make. Look, there's obviously been a very extreme reaction to all this chaos from Dwayne Johnson. He is the disruptor who occasionally shows up in WWE and is a big spanner in the works, and sometimes it's great, the final boss stuff with Cody last year, and then sometimes everyone hates it, like this year, and everything that went. So obviously the Elimination Chamber angle with John Cena was excellent. It was extremely well done. There was no follow-up on The Rock's involvement, and it doesn't sound like there was ever planned to be. If you listen to the Pat McAfee interview, The Rock basically says that, hey, I was there for one night. I was there to boost ticket sales for one night. And it's not like he was stringing WWE along and going, yeah, I might be at Mania. Talent, creative in fact, were told to prepare for Mania on the basis that he wouldn't be there. So I find the quite loud reaction that The Rock is responsible for WrestleMania feeling a bit flat to some people. I find the idea that he's responsible for that to be kind of nonsense, really, because creative were told not to factor him in. So if creative were told not to factor him in, he didn't have an influence on it, and therefore it's creative's fault. It's ultimately Paul Levesque's fault because he's the one who commissions everything that happens on the show. Look, they had 6 weeks to prepare after Elimination Chamber. It sounds like The Rock made it clear he wasn't going to be at WrestleMania. So you can't blame him for things going wrong with John Cena and Travis Scott and Cody Rhodes and all that, because they still had 6 weeks to prepare, and Triple H was instructing people to write, or whoever was instructing people to prepare creative without The Rock in mind. At the end of the day, look, he's always going to be a bit of a divisive character, I think. When he's there, the fiction is often great, but as we saw on the 6th of January and the NXT episode afterwards, sometimes the fiction's not so great as well. He is ultimately a more powerful person in WWE than Paul Levesque because he's on the board. Paul Levesque is not. He's the chief content officer. So, and we've heard it reported in the past as well, but when it's a case of Levesque versus Rock in creative debates, Nick Khan, WWE president, also above Triple H, is usually going to sign with Dwayne, who he's known for years, predating his involvement in wrestling. So, yeah, it's a whole thing. It seems like any time The Rock even so much looks at WWE, there's a whole stramash and a kerfuffle coming out of it, shall we say. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I don't think he ruined WrestleMania. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like people are looking for a fiction, like not a fictional. He's real. He's not a construct. It feels like people are looking for a convenient boogeyman to blame for whatever disappointment they felt in this year's main event and the weeks leading up to it or whatever. It's a great angle, obviously, the John Cena heel turn. I can see why people would feel disappointed by Mania and the promo battles with Cody Rhodes leading up to that, although the last couple were really strong, I thought, personally. But let me know in the comments section below what you think of this whole deal. He's on the board, so this stuff's going to keep happening. And I do think that sometimes he speaks without maybe considering some of the reactions, and maybe the idea from in here that Rock didn't understand how integral he was to the story. Maybe that adds up as well, but yeah, it's a whole lot of stuff. You want to talk about something different? Okay, let's talk about the roast of WrestleMania. So this got people talking from the moment it was announced, because I understand Tony Hinchcliffe is a pretty controversial guy. The first I heard of him was the comments he made about Puerto Rico last year, which were obviously gross. I'm not familiar with his work otherwise. If you are, maybe you looked at it in a different light, I don't know. But he hosted this roast of WrestleMania after night 2 in Las Vegas, and the whole deal was you're not getting in with your phones. I think they were putting those magic bags that kill signal or something like that. It's not going to be broadcast, all of this stuff. But some audio made it to the internet today, and WWE quickly went after the uploads and got them taken down. Why are they doing this? Is it because they didn't want the content of the roast making it to the internet? Is it because they are actually planning on releasing it themselves? You knew somebody was going to find a way to record it and leak it at some stage, right? That always happens. But you don't need to go far to find, some of the more controversial things that were said. And I'm obviously not going to repeat, jokes word for word or anything like that. But some of the worst stuff included a joke about Jinder Mahal and ISIS. He's Canadian, Indo-Canadian. What are we doing here? A bunch of stuff about Charlotte Flair's face, a Jey Uso DUI joke, some stuff about Nia Jax's body, and stuff about various talents being subjected to tariffs and deportations and stuff. So look, personally, roasts aren't really a thing in the UK. I'm not particularly familiar with this concept. So you guys tell me. This just seems more of like an airing of grievances rather than like a playful bit of banter where you lightly needle someone. I don't know. Is this stuff normal? I don't know. Either way, it doesn't really seem like the best PR in the world to me. I think that if somebody reads some of these things and they're offended by it because it's maybe using language that has been used to harm them in the past, I think their stances are very fair. Maybe it doesn't seem like the most well-intentioned thing either. I wonder if they'll do it again. Who the heck knows? I understand that this is what Tony Hinchcliffe does, right? Adam Wilborn told me he's a roast comedian. This is kind of his forte. And maybe the argument there is that, well, don't bring him in if you don't want him to say these things, which, maybe just don't bring him in. Obviously, a lot of really, how do we say this? Below the belt jokes and stuff that people rightly, I think, are upset by. I don't know. Maybe no more roasts after WrestleMania. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe you went and you had a good time, but I don't know. Some of these lines are not good. Tony Hinchcliffe and various wrestlers, and Paul Heyman said some wild things. But let's move on. Let's move on to something a bit less. Oh no, actually, Becky Lynch. People find her controversial too. Bloomin' Nora. Right, we got an update on Becky Lynch's creative. At least it's nothing to do with racist jokes or anything, thankfully. On Wrestling Observer Live, Brian Alvarez basically said that everything that happened with Becky Lynch at WrestleMania and on the Raw after WrestleMania was pitched by Becky. Here's his quote: "The whole thing was Becky's idea. It was all Becky's idea. I heard about it in advance. Becky wants to come back. She wants to win the title and then turn on Lyra the next night." So what happened at WrestleMania was that Lyra Valkyria was originally supposed to team with Bayley to challenge Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the women's tag team titles. Bayley was taken out in an angle on Saturday, and it was revealed that that was all creative. She's not injured. It was just an angle. This led to a situation where it was Lyra and a mystery tag team partner on Sunday, and I think almost everybody thought it was going to be Becky because her and Lyra have a past. Becky came out, big pop, they worked the match, the babyfaces won. Lyra and Becky won the women's tag team titles. The next night on Raw, we had our instant WrestleMania rematch against Liv and Raquel, who won the belts back. So the reign lasted one day. Afterwards, Becky Lynch turned on Lyra, hit about 5 manhandle slams, something like that. She did a lot. It was harsh. It was too much Becky Lynch. And yeah, all of this was seemingly Becky's idea. So a lot of people, a common nickname for people who the internet and the fan base thinks is overpushed is Hogan. I've seen Becky Hogan thrown about a few times recently, but ultimately I don't think that really holds much water because she lost the titles the next night. It's not like she, went on and had this long epic reign or whatever and pushed herself with the belts. Yes, the turn does mean she's going to be very prominent, and she should be. She's one of the biggest names in the company. Of course she should be pushed prominently. She shouldn't be farting around, doing like lower mid-card programs. This is going to be an upper mid-card program designed to push Lyra up to that level. She is the Women's Intercontinental Champion, and if they feud over that belt, if you have a former WrestleMania headliner and Becky Lynch in that spot, it immediately makes it feel like a bigger deal. Now, obviously, the creative is important, right? It's not as simple as just throwing two people together and going, magically, you are over. That's not how it works. The follow-up has to be solid, but I think Becky Lynch is very smart, and I think she will play it well if she has a further hand in how this story is told. I also think that it comes at a time when Lyra feels like more of an ascendant star. She's climbing the ladder, she's having really good matches, she's showing her work in the ring, and she's always been a good wrestler, but she's breaking out in 2025, it feels like. So I actually think this is a really good chance for everyone involved. I don't think losing the belts and winning the back did any harm whatsoever to the Judgment Day. I think they are just fine. And I think that this will be a very productive feud that will take a younger star, a newer star, and make them even more over and probably better as well. Because as you work with really good wrestlers, you improve. That's how wrestling works. You want to get better? Work with better wrestlers. Becky Lynch is one of the best. So I'm looking forward to this creative, and if it came from her, fair play. I like it. I think it's good, and that would make me feel good about future Becky Lynch ideas making it to TV as well. Okay, shall we wrap this video up by talking about Rusev? There's a guy nobody can be mad about, right? Well, I'm sure there's somebody out there, but who knows. Backstage reaction to Rusev's return. Obviously, he came back on the Raw after WrestleMania. He killed Akira Tozawa and Otis. It was a strange angle. It appeared like they were setting up Alpha Academy to face the New Day for the tag team titles when Rusev came down and killed the babyfaces and the New Day ran away. Maybe Rusev's going to fight them on Raw or something. I don't know. But the backstage reaction is very positive, according to PW Insider. They say many talents in WWE were happy to have Rusev back when he returned on Raw. And sources say that WWE intend to have him back in the mix in a major way. Seen rumblings going around that he might be a world title opponent for Jey Uso. I think that's an interesting program. It depends how long you're going to have Jey hold on to the belt. Personally, I'd be looking to throw that thing on Seth Rollins pretty soon. I think that he came out of WrestleMania looking great. I think he came out of Raw looking great with his new faction, and he's probably the guy I would look to build that division around for the next while. He's had it before, obviously. He was very important in establishing that piece of gold and all that stuff. So, but yeah, Rusev rules. Rusev rules. I've always been a Miro guy, always been a Rusev guy. Loved the original Rusev stuff, and then Rusev Day and League of Nations. Bobby Lashley and Lana. And, maybe forget that stuff. That's not his fault, though. It's the crazy old man came up with that rubbish. And I liked Miro in AEW a lot as well. Really loved the Gods champion stuff, the Redeemer stuff. So I think he's going to have a good run. He's not been in WWE for 5 years. He's also not been on TV for ages. So he feels fresh and interesting and new and exciting. The new entrance theme is not as good as the last one, but hey, look, it's 2025. Def Rebel are at the wheel. So, you can temper your expectations when it comes to music, which sucks because WWE used to be the best at music, not anymore. But we're talking about Rusev here. The guy rules. I'm glad he's back. It's a 2-year deal, as has been reported. Lana has signed a Legends deal, so you'd imagine she will show up at some point. Hopefully not for any silly love triangle stories or anything like that, but happy to see him back, and it seems his WWE peers are as well. But I'm talking about Rusev, obviously. So, yeah, good stuff. Thank you for joining me for today's wrestling news. I promise things will be back to normal relatively soon, but hey, look, this is what we do. I've been Andy, I'll see you later, and if you want something else to watch, how about this video here? The algorithm thinks you're really gonna love it, so if you don't, blame the algorithm, blame the robot, don't blame the human. Bye.